So then what you will do, you will say, okay, thank you for sharing the details. I'm very excited. I'm going to take these numbers and I'm going to think about it.
Let's talk about money and negotiation, salary negotiation in particular. I'm super excited because today I'm joined by Sundas, who is a senior analytical lead at Google and a huge advocate for women in technology, diversity in tech, and who has made it her mission to help women negotiate better salaries in technology, or just negotiate better salaries in general. She is super experienced, super knowledgeable on the topic, and I'm super excited to share her insights on the topic and actual practical steps. This is part 2 of our conversation with Sundas. We also did an Instagram live before that, which is now an IGTV video, so you can watch it in recording, where we talked about her journey, getting into tech, switching careers from business and going into technology, and her experience working for Amazon and Google. So if you're interested to see that, seeing that, the link will be in the description to that IGTV video. All right, without further ado, let's get into the interview. Sundas, thank you so much for joining me here.
Yay, I'm so glad we're finally doing this. My favorite topic.
Honestly, mine too. I think it's such an important topic, and I wish it was more discussed. And I'm so excited that you are such an advocate for this, and that 1 million goal is incredible. I'm so in awe of that, and the fact that you are on track to achieving it, and probably maybe even going further.
Yay, fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. All right, so let's jump into the questions straight away, because I'm super curious about your perspective on this. Do you think that anyone can negotiate your salary? Would you recommend starting to do that after a certain level of experience, or is it always on the table?
The simple answer is it's always on the table. You don't need to get a certain level of experience to negotiate your job offers. The only exception, and now there's exception to the exception also. The only exception I would say maybe internship packages that are pretty standardized. Sometimes those are not very negotiate. You cannot negotiate them. But anything else, full-time, I think everything can be negotiated. So you don't need to meet a certain number of years or have a certain level of experience to be able to ask for more money.
And I know we touched on this in the IGTV video, which is live already, but here, how would you approach the process of negotiating one's salary?
Okay, so yeah, I can walk through the process. So let's say you interviewed, you got the call from recruiter. The recruiter said that we are glad to offer you a job. And this is, normally they won't send this over email. They will get on a phone call and talk to you. So they will be, after saying that you got the job offer, they will be like, okay, this is the compensation that what we are offering you. They will share with you your the base salary, and if there's any equity portion, and if there's any signing bonus or any other bonuses. So then what you will do, you will say, okay, thank you for sharing the details. I'm very excited. I'm going to take these numbers and I'm going to think about it. So then you basically go into the research mode. You first try to understand what you are offered. You do the market research, and I'm sure you have done that market research before even getting to that point, and you already have a number in mind. So you do that. If you haven't done it, then this would be a good point to do the market research. Go to the tools for tech salaries that I mentioned. Levels.fyi is a good space. Glassdoor, I personally don't think Glassdoor salaries are very accurate. They are very underscored. So levels.fyi definitely for tech salaries. Blind is another tool that a lot of people have been using. And if you know people at that company or your friends, then talk to them, ask them directly. It's completely okay to do that. And let's say if you're not able to find the exact number for that company, you can find benchmark from within the industry for a similar role. So that way you have a good idea of what you should be asking them back. So once you have done that, then you can say, it's up to you. You can either get on a call, you can ask the recruiter to get on a call with you, depending on like however you like to do the conversation. You can get on a phone call, or you can send on an email, and you can say like, hey, X, like, thank you so much for the offer. I had the chance to reflect on the offer. I'm very excited. And then you talk about like what are kind of like why you are the right person for the job, what are the strengths that you bring, how you're gonna provide value to the team and the role. And then you say, however, the compensation that you're being offered is under your expectation. And then your expectation is X through X. And then give a range. I think there's like theories, like you shouldn't give a range or you should give a exact number. I think range is better idea to give, because when you give a range, you kind of like give them, you're not giving, it almost doesn't sound like an order, like this is the number I want to take, or I will not join. When you give them a range, you give them a room to play with. So give them a range and say like, my expectation is from X to X. Can we discuss further how you can help me get there? And then that's it. Then the recruiter will either get back to you and say like, okay, let me see what the team what the team says. Let me talk to the HR. Let me talk to the finance. And sometimes they will come back. They might or might not meet your number. Like, be ready to go for another round of negotiation. So you might have to do that again. And then the last thing that I think is like really a power kind of that you can leverage if you have counter offers. And that is, counter offer can be powerful. That's how I kind of like negotiated my last compensation. As soon as you have the counter offer, the companies, you become like, all of a sudden, like you become very attractive to pretty much everybody, and they want to pay, they want to meet your demand. And especially if the other company is paying more to hire you, they will do whatever, they will kind of like go above the benchmark sometimes to meet the market value that you are at currently being offered. So leverage the counter offer if you can. Now for the counter offer, yeah, you will have to do a lot of pre-work where you have to align your interview schedule. You have to kind of like align your job offer schedule. So a lot of the pre-work that you would have to do like maybe 6 months before you even start applying. So yeah, those are like a few tips that I would say. And like definitely get a mentor, somebody that you can talk to. Because like that person can be very, very helpful, especially when you are kind of like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, this was good. Like, that person can be like that voice in your ear who can tell you like, no, you can ask for more. Like you're doing fine. Like you're doing great. Like keep asking.
Yeah. Because sometimes this process can be so demotivating. And like we were talking about in the other live stream, you have come so far. Like, it's been such a long journey that you're tired, and like it's just mentally draining, but you gotta keep on pushing. I don't know why, but like when you were talking about your market value and how the other company kind of defines that reminded me of the real estate market, and how
yeah,
you know how like when you're trying to assess whether a house is worth something, you look at the houses around that.
Yeah.
And it's like every now and again that houses pop up around us now that are like higher in sales. We're like, yes, this is going to be our comparison. And so it's kind of a similar concept in a way.
And not only that, like when you're putting in an offer on a house, you know, like how you go into kind of like bidding wars.
Oh,
so
yes.
So.
Yes. And I feel like that range is the escalation clause.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
And so how would you recommend for someone to approach this process, you know, depending on where they're coming from, whether they're, you know, applying for a job internally or applying for a promotion or externally? Are there different methodologies that you would recommend in those cases?
Yeah, so I think externally is what we just discussed. Let's say if you get an offer, and then like in ideal cases, you also have a counter offer, and you have done your market research and you know your value, so you can like use all those pieces to negotiate. And obviously, like you would have to do like an interview prep, and the better you do in your interview performance, the more kind of attractive you are to the hiring team. So make sure like you're doing all the groundwork to stand out. So that's like externally. Internally, that the sad part is that you don't have as much leverage as you have externally. So you might, so when you're switching teams, you might not have an option to negotiate, because a lot of companies have rules and policies that internal transfers cannot be negotiated. So a lot of the times is you have to stick with the package that you're offered at the hiring, even when you're moving internally. Now, in terms of like asking for more and like kind of like getting asking for a raise, performance reviews are the best times when you can like start talking to your manager and start talking to him or her in terms of like the expectations that you have for your salary. And same goes for like promotion. Like when you're applying for promotion, there's a lot of work that happens before that, kind of like to show that your project work and all of that. And those are also like a good time to kind of like start discussing like your expectation. Now, I do have to say that the leverage that, I'll say it again, like the leverage that you have an external job offer is not going to be the same as internal job offers.
Fair enough. So. Pretty much understandable, because they already know where you're coming from, right? They know where you've been paid and all that stuff. Unfortunately, they have all of that history. By the way, people who are in the audience, Celeste and Teresa, if you have any questions, let me know. Please go ahead and ask it yourself, or if you don't feel comfortable, I write it in the chat and I'll read it out. Okay, Teresa's.
I have a question for you about the salary negotiation while you work in a company. So do you think it's possible to kind of renegotiate your salary, or after a few years of experience that you work in the same company, or for example, promotions? So if you get promoted, is that an occasion for you to renegotiate your salary, your benefits, or holidays? It doesn't have to be about money. Sometimes you can ask for different things, like more holidays, health benefits, and this kind of stuff. So when do you recommend, like, talking to your manager about, salary, revising your salary at some point in your career? Without necessarily changing company,
Yeah. So yeah, I think as we discussed previously, it's slightly harder to negotiate internally, but I don't want to say it's impossible. It's possible. Like I did it. So when I was basically at Amazon, I renegotiated my offer 3 years in. Basically, I got a counter offer from Microsoft, and I brought it to my manager. I said, like, look, this is what Microsoft is paying me. Like, if you want to keep me, it's I need to be paid. This is my market value. Like, and talk to HR, talk to finance, like, help me out. So there are ways in terms of like when to ask your manager. I think like performance reviews, like when you are going into your annual review, like when the manager is going to review your performance, that would be a good time to kind of like not at the review, but like a few months before, a few weeks before, because like at the review, pretty much everything is locked. So you want to like do it earlier, so that way things are not locked when you're having that discussion, and your manager has like a good understanding of like what you are expecting. So it's not a surprise for you at the review process itself. And then in terms of the promotion as well, I would say like have the conversation before, because a lot of the times when the promotions are approved, the salary packages are also approved. So like have those conversations as early as possible, especially if you know that you're going to be put up for promotion. And you can also like try to do the market research. And let's say if you were making like pretty off from what the market value that you have currently, you can use that as a data point to kind of like get compensated more for what you're worth, basically.
Thanks.
So there are a couple of ways you can go around. There's like no one straightforward answer to like when is the right time to negotiate.
I love how getting other offers is just such an ammunition when it comes to negotiating, because yeah. So So like a little additional question on that. So did you go out to Microsoft, or did they reach out to you and try to recruit you and go put you through the interview process in that scenario?
So this is something that I learned from one of my friends. You're gonna see me mention a lot of he's here, because what he used to do, he started working in the industry, and he said, like, whenever he gets an interview call, he never says no. He always interviews. So I learned that from him, that when I get in the industry, like, I'm also going to interview. And that helps me a couple of ways. One, it keeps my interview skills fresh, and I know like what is like being asked in the market. The second, like, it helped me evaluate like where I am in the market, and how the market values me, how the company values me. So for like, that is something that I've had as a goal for some time now, where if somebody is reaching out to me, I will interview. Now, like, I have become like a little bit picky now, but I will, like, if it's the right opportunity, that's something that I would consider. Like, I will go ahead and interview.
Fair. That's awesome. And it's such a great tip, honestly, because there will be a lot of people reaching out to you, and it's also always nice for self-esteem and ego, just because that way you're more confident when you're going into those meetings. And confidence is like such a tool in negotiation.
Yeah. And not only that, you're also building your network. You are going and you're interviewing, you're kind of basically meeting all these new people from different companies.
Absolutely. Sundas, what have been the most impactful books, resources, podcasts, or anything like that have changed your approach to money and how you see money, and how you behave around money?
Yeah, so I think there were a couple of books. One is, so for me, like, in terms of like I have been negotiating my salary, but like, every time I got an offer, like, I negotiated. I don't know why I was doing it. Like, I have not been financially literate since, like, I did not grow up in a family where finances are discussed like openly, especially among women and investing. So I don't know why, but I was always negotiating like my offers. And in terms of financial literacy, it wasn't until last year, when the pandemic hit, when I actually started thinking about like, how do my finances look in the long term, when I retire, like, how much money I'm going to have. So that's when I started like learning more about it, like trying to understand more in terms of like, what does it mean to have to be financially literate. So a couple of books that were helpful for me. One was super helpful, was Bias in Data. Like, this doesn't talk about financial literacy, but this talks pretty much about, I don't know, Masha, if you have read it. So Bias in Data, Invisible Women. So it basically is a book written by a professor in United Kingdom. And she has done a bunch of research that looks at various aspects of like social life, part of our lives. And then she has like talked about how this world is kind of like built by a man for a man. Mm-hmm. And in her book, she kind of also talks about the retirement packages. Like, she discusses like how majority of the part-time workers are women. And then she says, like, when we're talking about the retirement plans, majority of the retirement plans are targeted toward people who are full-time workers. And which means, like, if majority of the women are part-time workers, then who is it like benefiting more and who is it hurting more? So that was like the initial book that kind of like it opened the door for me a little bit. And then I started like reading up more. And there was a book that was recommended to me. It was called Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And in his book, he talks about, he basically wrote this book like as if he's talking to his daughter. So he wrote it in very simple terms. And he talks about, he basically wrote a bunch of letters to his daughter and he compiled it into a book. And I really loved his tone, the way he was teaching, his demeanor. Like, you can see, like, while you're reading, you can read like people's tone, right? So the way he introduces the financial literacy and investing, that was like super powerful for me. And I think that book was kind of like a breakthrough for me to become more financially literate. And now I'm helping other women to become financially literate. I run like a Facebook group where we basically a bunch of newbies into investing and come and talk about like simple things in terms of financial literacy and financial education.
That's amazing. That's such a wonderful mission, because I mean, there are statistics around the world on how when women have more money, you know, their communities grow and benefit from it because they reinvest that money into the community, and it's just like the pie grows for everyone. And so such huge kudos to you. Like that's amazing. And what would you recommend to anyone who is looking to, you know, build their financial freedom, who is thinking of, you know, aiming for that?
Yeah, I would say like start educating themselves. So there is there is something that since I got into one thing that has been like really bothering me is that financial literacy is something that it's a fundamental concept, it's a life skill, but it's something not taught in school. Currently, people who are financially literate, either they learned it on their own by accidentally discovering this space, or they were taught from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if your parents are financially literate, you're going to be financially literate. But if your parents are not financially literate, then you're basically left on your own. You're not going to learn this in school. You're not going to learn it from your parents. And you're going to make the financial mistakes, and you're going to maybe accidentally discover it later, like me. And then you're going to take the right steps to it. So I would say take the ownership on your own, make it your goal to become financially literate. It's part of everybody's life. Like there is nobody is an exception to it. Like if you're a working adult, if you're an adult, like you have to manage your finances, and you have to understand how this whole financial system around you works, and how you can like not take advantage of it, but like not get disadvantaged by the system. So there are two books that have been super helpful for me that I would recommend. One is Simple Path to Wealth that I mentioned. It's by J.L. Collins. And then the second one is I'll Teach You to Be Rich. It's by Ramit Sethi. So those are the two books that I have read and I highly recommend to everybody. And another tip that I would share, like after reading these books, let's say if there's a concept that is not clear to me, I would just look it up. I'll read blogs on it, or I'll watch YouTube videos to like deep dive into the concepts. And if you're working, like look at the easiest one is to enroll into your company's 401k plan, because a lot of the companies have 401k plans, like the retirement plans, and they do the matching. So if you're not contributing to your retirement plan, you're actually leaving money on the table. So that's like number one is obviously negotiate your salary. That's the best way to kind of increase your compensation. Second is like start investing in those pockets where you are basically, if you don't take advantage of it, you leave money on the table. Like 401k is one of that. IRA is another one where there is a lot of tax advantage if you were to invest. So yeah, like start with these books, but then talk to your friends, make new friends if you have to, or teach your friends if you have to, but take that ownership it's on you to kind of like learn it, because right now our school system do not teach that.
Which is so unfortunate. I'm in the same boat, and even though my parents, are pretty, doing pretty well in that regard, I was never, and I have a background in economics. Like, I did not know any. They don't teach this. It's basic skills, and yeah. And so I remember, and I think these accounts, because coming to US and like opening up a 401k account, I was like, why is it called 401k? Are they gonna give me like $401,000? Like, I'm up for that.
Yeah.
I think they might be called different things. Like if you guys are watching from all over the world, it might be a retirement account, or it might be some other stuff. Look it up what it is for you. But there are some savings accounts and retirement accounts that allow you to pay taxes now and not pay taxes when you take it out. Like you actually have to study this and like be proactive about it. Like like I wish they taught this at school. I wish they taught so many things that at school that they don't. And there's some things that we learn at school, which is like, why did I learn how to sew at school? Like, I know it's a skill, but like, I would have preferred to learn how to save money and budget, you know, like those things are much more important in my opinion, of course.
Yeah, and also I think that the companies need to take an ownership here as well. If you are offering your employees 401k and any other options, you need to understand, like in tech, there are a lot of people who are immigrant. They did not grow up in the system. They do not understand how the financial systems work. So it's a lot of it should be a burden on the companies to educate their employees to take advantage of the benefits that they're offering, which currently a lot of companies sadly do not do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. They really should educate their employees. And I love that there's so many more new blogs and new resources on this that are especially run by women, because I don't know, I tend to gravitate towards women and how they do things because I just relate to them more. And so seeing women who are doing these, including yourself, it just motivates me and inspires me to, you know, be in control of my financial situation, of my financial freedom. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing. You're doing like God's work, essentially.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Masha.
This is such an important topic. And again, thank you so much for coming on both platforms. And I can't wait to publish this video so that even more people can see this.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. And we discussed some very, very important topics. And I'm so glad that more people are talking about this because it's very, very important to whether that is salary negotiation or managing your finances.
100%. It shouldn't be a taboo subject anymore. We got it. Like, that's the only way to actually get women to be on the same level in terms of how much they're being paid and like their financial freedom, and we need that. Yeah. We need that.
Yeah. So I'll leave you with one last thing. There is a gender pay gap, which I think is discussed quite a bit. We have a lot of statistics around it. Then the gender pay gap also translates, combined with other things, investment gap, gender investment gap. So that's another area that is not openly discussed as much. There are not a lot of statistics around it, but like all of these things are kind of related. So definitely need to discuss more.
They are, for sure. And that's a very interesting topic to dive into next time, if you'd like, investment gap.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Me too. I love this. This was awesome. And I'll stop recording right now. Thank you so much, Sundas, for sharing your tips, for sharing your experience and practical tips on, you know, step-by-step how to approach this process. I feel like a lot of recommendations that I have seen online were kind of wishy-washy, and, you know, they said you should negotiate, but how do you actually negotiate? You broke it down for us. Thank you so much. This was incredible. And thank you so much to all of the women who joined this conversation live from the Stereotype Breakers Discord community for women in technology. If you're not part of that community yet, you know what to do. Apply using the link in the description. We would love to have you. And there will be many more events that happen just for that community in the community. So yeah, apply right now so that you don't miss out on all of those things. Let me know in the comments if you have anything else to add in terms of tips on how to negotiate and your experience with negotiation as well. If you have any stories or tips, let me know in the comments. Like this video if you've enjoyed it, and share it with a friend who is thinking of negotiating a salary or who is going through an interview process and might not think about negotiating their salary, because they should. We know that after watching this video. So share it with them. Share it with all your friends, especially all your female friends. Please share this because this is important. We need to talk about this more. We need this to happen much more often. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. I have no idea what's happening with my hands. I'm just pointing, but subscribe to this YouTube channel and there will be much more content coming out on this topic and many more interesting topics for you. So don't forget to turn on those bell notifications to know when the new video drops. We can also be friends on other social media. You can find me as Coding Blonde. And in fact, you should, because there will be a lot of Instagram lives, for example, and you don't want to miss them. You know, learning about stories of women in technology like Sundas. So yeah, Coding Blonde, different social media. You can find me. Have a wonderful time today you're currently experiencing. Bye.